Hello, and we're
Hey.
back with Testimony Thursdays, and I've got Ceri being interviewed today. As we said last week, we're trying to capture something of what God is saying to us through this strange and interesting season, and just thought it would be helpful to have some conversations with members of the ministry team and beyond that, many people in our congregation about what God is saying at this time. And so, Ceri, thank you for your time, and why don't you begin by just sharing a little bit about what you're observing God is doing amongst us as Burlington, but perhaps the wider church family as well through this season.
Yeah, thank you. I think it's really interesting because I think a lot of my observations are around community and connection. So actually, as a journey, we've been on this church, we've been on a journey of transition to a church that's about both celebration and community. And actually, in a pandemic, we've not walked this way before, but in a pandemic with lockdown, the sense of community has actually risen, not shrunk, both in culturally, but also within our church. And I think actually communication has risen. I think more people are talking deeply. In fact, some comments I've had from community leaders are about, well, how will we find time to come back to church, because we're all dealing at such a deep level now that actually that's going to get in the way, and that's amazing. So I think what I've sensed God saying is that we have been and are on the right track. It's felt difficult at times to make this transition, to go from a way that we'd walked for a long time to walk a different way, a way that we've seen Jesus' model of community being the hub and the heartbeat for mission and discipleship. But I guess I've just heard God's affirmation. I've heard that sense of, actually the world is showing us it's crying out for community and it's crying out for connection. And the model we're trying to grow has both. And the other thing I think God's been speaking to me about is that, the light shines in the darkness and the darkness cannot overcome it. And that's been so true of our churches and our communities. We've had people come to faith during this COVID season, and that's amazing. We've had people really deepening their relationship with God, and actually there is beauty to be seen. And I love the fact that the light has shone in the darkness and the darkness can't overcome it. And I just keep hearing God whispering, you can't overcome that light. You can't overcome who I am. And a lot about very much God's faithfulness within this. And I think I've seen that so much as I've walked, that sense of continuity at the heart of creation. I know we've chatted lots about our walks and things we love, but I've been really struck as every time I walk, every day, to see how it's like the creation is a great big orchestra with God as the conductor, and at the start there were snowdrops, and then the bluebells came, and then the cows passing, and the red campion, and so on, and other poppies. And what's amazing is it doesn't have to be told to do that. It's never rushed, but it's never late. And at the heart of it, it is a God who is there, faithful, a God who shows us through creation. Actually, he's in control. It's all good. He's got it. We don't need to fear. We don't need to panic. And we just need to follow closely with him. So I think for me, that sense of his faithfulness, sense of his affirmation that we're on the right track has been really important and felt really significant. And that sense that actually the church hasn't been closed down. The church has just been released. We've just taken the walls down and actually the church is alive and well and in the community. Absolutely. And I sense the Father's pleasure.
Yeah. And I suspect right at the beginning of all of this, none of us would have even imagined we'd be saying these words right now. When that kind of first few days of panic, what does this look like, hit? And then as we began to walk through this, to see the beauty of our communities flourishing in this environment of caring for one another and supporting one another, of leaders rising and leading in a way perhaps we hadn't seen before. It's a beautiful thing, and very much an Acts 2 church as well, of community, really caring for one another with base needs as well as other things. You've been really active
Absolutely.
in your community, in your
Yes.
neighbourhoods. Why don't you share a
Yes.
little bit about that for a moment?
I think it's been fantastic. So we, before lockdown happened, just sent in our kind of close that we live. We sent out a little note to all the houses saying, hey, it'd be great to create a WhatsApp group. We need to look out for each other. We've got quite a few elderly people in our community, families, a variety of stuff. And actually, we're going to need each other. So should we form this group? The majority of the close jumped on it immediately. And that WhatsApp group is alive, and actually we all know each other far deeper than we did before. People are being incredibly generous of offering shopping, offering, when shots of, I can't speak today, shopping slots was so difficult to get. Everybody in the close was sharing, despite the fact that meant they couldn't get everything they needed. There's just been a real collective spirit, and at the NHS clap every week meant people were out there, but people were socially distanced, but talking and communicating. And actually, I'm really excited. There's a real sense, people are talking all the time, when this is over, let's work out how we're going to get together. And so the opportunities within that to be salt and light and to share gospel and to do family and do life together just feel fantastic.
Amazing.
And that feels really exciting, actually.
Amazing. So you personally, busy life with lots of work and many people living in your house that you feed and look after and all of that. What's God been speaking to you about personally through this season?
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Life has been very full. I think this season's either meant there are people that they couldn't do what they normally did, or people who can continue. I've been in the can continue to do what I used to do before. And at times that's felt a bit tricky and stretching. GCSE maths has brought me to tears more than once. Don't love that. So actually I've really lent into something that I've always known is significant in my life, and I think actually speaks to us as a church too, which is rhythms. The rhythms of life that I have that connect me to God and connect me ultimately to who I am. And I've ultimately always known that to be true, but for me they are a bit like a trellis in a plant that just offers support and keeps us in the right way of walking, the right way of being. So for me, I like a plan. I am a planner. So as we kind of hit this, immediately for me it was saying to God, okay, how do I hold the rhythms that sustain me and keep me well? So that meant every morning with my quiet time, normally I love to walk, and obviously when we were allowed 1 walk a day, that was kind of going up with the family. So I was walking up and down my garden for long periods, early in the morning, having my kind of time with God, quiet time, being in nature really speaks to me. But actually God's spoken to me again just about how those rhythms anchor me, anchor my soul. And I think I've held on a lot to a verse in Jeremiah, which is 17:8, which says, they'll be like a tree planted by the water that sends out its shoots by the stream. It doesn't fear when heat comes. Its leaves are always green, and it has no worries in a year of drought and never fails to bear fruit.
Amazing.
So actually for me personally, holding on to rhythms that have fed my soul, my emotional well-being, and connected me to God have been really essential, and God's just been affirming those. And actually I talked about seeing nature growing, and that's really been a visual picture for me as well, about those rhythms bring growth. Those rhythms keep us well. Those rhythms help. And in our communities, we know that they're predictable patterns that we talk about that hold communities together, that hold families together. Within our family unit, we've throughout lockdown and that period had rhythms of connection together that have just kept us all connected and still liking each other and all of those things. But God's just been talking that for me again, actually, it's as we breathe in Jesus, it's only from that place can we breathe out any action. And so I just felt a lot of what God has said about seasons and rhythms. So what am I, I've thought again, okay, within this season, what are my daily seasons? How do I have extended times with God? my life has felt really full, but actually without those moments, my life is a little bit off balance and doesn't work as well. So I guess I've spent a lot of time reflecting on, and what are the new rhythms that I want to take into the next season. I've loved very early every morning. I go for a really long walk in the countryside. Now, I don't want to lose that. Being out in nature with God, that space just sets me for the day in a place that's healthy. So what are the rhythms I want to take into the new season that will come? And actually, what are some of the rhythms I don't want to, maybe are less healthy or just not necessary? So I think that's where I've been focusing a lot of my thinking, is actually I want to be like that tree planted by the water. I want my roots to go out into the stream, and I don't want to live in the fear places, because I'm in a place of connectedness with God, because my rhythms are strong, my rhythms are healthy, and they're keeping me well.
Yeah, and that verse is so helpful, because they say that they'll sustain you when it's sort of drought time and when the sun's really scorching in through to a new season. So really, really helpful reflections. Thank you so much, Ceri. I'm hoping that people will jump on and put some comments on this, but do send some comments in for us. If you've got anything to ask Ceri about what she said, then do again pop that in the comments, and we'll be back next week with someone new sharing. So thanks, Ceri. It's great to have you.
You're so welcome. Good to speak to you. Take care. Bye.